In this video, I'm going to be comparing the Incredibles franchise to the Frozen franchise. The reason for that is because in part 1 of this series, I compared the Incredibles franchise to the Inside Out franchise. Incredibles 1, I compared the Sing movies to the Frozen movies, Frozen 1. So now I'm going to be debating the winners of those two contests. When you look at highest score for each franchise, the first Incredibles is a 97%. The first Frozen is an 89%. We look at lowest score, Frozen 2 is a 77%. Incredibles 2 is a 93%. When you look at average score, Incredibles is an average of 95, Frozen is an average of 83. When you look at gap between lowest and highest score, gap's only 4% in the case of Incredibles, whereas of Frozen it's 12%, which obviously is still pretty good, but it's a bit higher than the gap for Incredibles. Incredibles has won every round so far, so it's going to be winning this debate. Now, when we look at my personal opinion, I think these two franchises are pretty close to each other when it comes to quality. When I look at the first Frozen, I think that it's a great movie. Yeah, I think that the movie is front-loaded with the best songs. What I'm talking about here is that from the beginning of the movie until Let It Go, you have Frozen Heart for the first time in forever. Do you want to build a snowman? Love is an open door. And then Let It Go. And after that, there's not as many great songs. I mean, you have In Summer from Olaf, which is quite fun, I will say. And then you have Fixer Upper for the Trolls, a reprise of For the First Time in Forever. So when you look at it, you realize, oh, the movie's front-loaded with all the best songs. And then when I look at Frozen 2, I really enjoyed that film as well. I got to see it in theaters with my parents. I think it's interesting that Frozen 2 doesn't have a villain in the traditional sense. It doesn't have someone that Anna and Elsa are actually fighting against. It's more about the two of them going off to this forest and then realizing something that happened in the past, an injustice that Arendelle committed against these people. We learned that, oh, Anna and Elsa's granddad was actually a bigot, which is quite powerful. And also, I like the growth that you see from Anna and Elsa across both movies. It's quite powerful. I think Frozen 2 did a good job with the songs. They're really, really good songs in there. I like the visuals too. I like that with Frozen 2, you don't feel as much like, oh, the film's front loaded with all the best songs, which is the feeling you get with the first movie. Yeah, I will say that when you get to the end of Frozen 2, and after the movie set up the idea that, oh, there's a price that has to be paid because of this injustice that Arendelle committed against these people in the past, and then, oh, Elsa just stops Arendelle from being destroyed. So, oh, okay, there's actually no consequences for Arendelle at all. Okay, that doesn't really work for me because the movie sets up that Anna needs to make the difficult decision to have the dam be destroyed because the dam represents the prejudice against the native people. The dam is destroyed, and then it seems like Arendelle's gonna be flooded, and then Elsa just comes in and saves the day. So okay, Arendelle didn't need to pay any price at all. It's a bit anticlimactic, but overall, I still would say Frozen 2 is a really good sequel to the original movie. When it comes to Incredibles, I'm a big fan of both of these movies. Sure, when I look at the first Incredibles, I'm not a big fan of Syndrome as a villain because his origin story has been done before multiple other times. You got the villain who started off as a fanboy to our hero, and then this person feels slighted by the hero, and thus they choose a path of revenge and then come back as a supervillain. We already saw this in Batman Forever with the Riddler. We also more recently saw this in Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Electro, and in Iron Man 3 with Aldrich Killian. So Syndrome's motivation, his origin, comes off as generic to me. Then when I look at Incredibles 2, I think that the plot twist about the screenslaver is pretty easy to predict. You see it coming pretty quickly because you're thinking, wait a minute, there's a character whose name is Evelyn Dever. This name literally sounds like Evil Endeavor. And also, when you think, wait a minute, who could possibly be the screenslaver? You're like, oh, it has to be Evelyn, because there's no other good suspects at all. You don't feel like there's any chance Winston could be the screenslaver. This doesn't make any sense because Winston comes off as such a good guy. You just feel like there's no way the movie's going to reveal that he's secretly evil. And so who else could be the screenslaver other than Evelyn? Oh, there's no one else that fits the bill. But still, I had a great time with Incredibles 2. I got to see it in theaters and thought it was a really good way to continue the franchise. I like the switch of Bob having to stay home, be the parent, while Helen is off on a mission, whereas in the first movie it was Bob that went off on a mission and Helen stayed home to take care of the kids. I definitely have nostalgia for Frozen because the first time I saw that first movie was actually with an aunt, uncle, and cousins of mine on my dad's side of the family. And me and my parents saw Frozen 2 in theaters together. So, which series do I actually prefer? That's a hard question. I mean, when I think about Incredibles, I like the fact that these movies are not based on any specific comic books. They actually created new original heroes. That doesn't happen too often, honestly, other than even Big Hero 6 is actually based on a Marvel comic. So it's not very common to actually get new original superheroes. So I very much appreciate that. But then I like that Frozen sure is about a character with powers, but it's not like the X-Men. It's not like a comic book movie, anything like that. So Frozen doesn't feel that familiar to me. I don't watch this and go, oh yeah, it feels like this other thing. So, which series do I prefer? It's